I don't know who this is for. That's not a dramatic opening. That's the first true thing I can still say without checking the book. They told me... No, that makes it sound like a conversation. There was a sheet, laminated, cable tied to the underside of the desk, so you can't misplace it. Like the tower thinks you'd try. It has 3 lines in block print. Log all observations every few minutes. Report nothing unusual unless absolutely certain. If absolutely certain, wait 1 minute and confirm. And underneath that, in smaller type, do not discuss inconsistencies over open radio. There's a blank space under the last line, like there was supposed to be a 4th instruction and someone changed their mind. The tower is meant to be for fires. That's what I told my mum. That's what I told my mates. That's what I told myself when I packed the cooler and the long life milk, and the stupid little camping stove I didn't end up using because it's too windy for a flame to behave. And sure, the binoculars are real, the map table is real, the compass ring bolted to the wall is real, but the language is wrong for fires. Fires don't care whether you are absolutely certain. Fires don't ask you to confirm after 1 minute. Fires don't write in all caps, do not discuss inconsistencies. There's a logbook with a hard cover and a spine too stiff for comfort. It lives in a shallow drawer that sticks if you don't lift and pull at the same time. You can feel, through the resistance, the way the wood has swollen and dried and swollen again. I like that. The predictability, the honest friction. The first page has my name written by someone else, and a tower designation that is not the one painted on the door. Not in an obvious, wrong building way, more like abbreviations, a string of letters and numbers that don't match the signage on the access track. When I asked about it on day 1, Control laughed in my ear. "Just use what's on the log," they said. "And remember, nothing unusual unless you're sure." I said, "Copy," because you don't argue with a voice that speaks like a checklist. Log 0612. Wind steady. Cabin sway minimal. Visibility clear. Bird activity normal. No smoke. I write that like I'm some sort of bush poet. But it's just the structure they want. They love structure. You're meant to log every few minutes, not hourly like a standard weather broadcast. Not when you feel like it. Every few minutes, like the tower is impatient. My first day, I did it like they asked. I wrote until my hand ached. I filled lines with observations that would bore a god. The second day, I started compressing. I started narrating out loud while I wrote, because the only noise up here is wind and the occasional metal rattle, and your own voice starts to feel like you're proof you're still you. I didn't start recording until later. I swear I didn't. Tower unit. Confirm first log. It's too early for a check-in. Control normally waits until the hour, or until the routine breaks. Early calls are for practice, or for problems. I glance at the radio's digital display. It reads 0612 in green. I glance at my wristwatch. It reads 612. I glance at the cheap clock bolted above the window. Analog, with a second hand that jitters like it doesn't like being observed. It reads 612. Tower unit. The voice repeats. Confirm first log. I swallow. My throat is dry already. Control. Tower. First log recorded. Nothing unusual. There's a half-second silence. Then, correction. Do not report nothing unusual during confirmation. Report status. I blink. My hand pauses over the page, pen hovering, leaving a dot of ink that bleeds into paper fibers. Copy, I say, because that's what you say when you've been corrected. Status? Normal. Confirmed. Control says. Proceed. I stare at the laminated instruction sheet. It doesn't say anything about this. It says, report nothing unusual unless absolutely certain. I'm not absolutely certain of anything yet, so I tell myself it's a harmless procedural nuance. Different supervisors, different phrasing, shift handover misalignments. It happens. I write it down anyway, not because they asked, but because that's what the work does. It makes you log the fact that you are told how to log. Log 0613. Control instructions. Report status normal during confirmation. No smoke. Nothing unusual. I don't even notice I've written nothing unusual again until later. The first inconsistency is small enough to be embarrassing. There's a ridgeline out to the west, a long dark back of trees against pale sky. On my map, it's labelled with a name I can't pronounce properly. On the horizon, it's the thing I use to orient myself when my eyes start to go soft. The ridgeline has a dead tree on it. A pale snag, like a finger. I noticed it the first morning because it looked like it was pointing at the sun. Now, when I lift the binoculars, the snag is not where I remember. It's still there, same shape, same pale bark, but it's shifted along the ridge by maybe a few meters. A fraction of the skyline. I lower the binoculars, squint with naked eyes. The snag is where it has always been. I lift the binoculars again. The snag slides. Not like the tree moves, like the image does, like my eyes don't align correctly, like the binoculars have a prism that is slightly off. I check the focus wheel, I check the lens caps, I clean the glass with a little cloth they provide in a Ziploc. When I lift them again, the snag is back in the right spot. I laugh out loud because the alternative is stupid. Silly, I tell myself. Log 621. Binocular alignment checked. Brief parallax shift noted. Resolved after cleaning. No smoke. Nothing unusual. That's how it starts. By lunchtime, I've rationalized 2 more. A sound that arrives half a beat late, like a bird call, and then its echo, but there's no cliff face to bounce from. I tell myself sound does strange things over treetops, that wind layers can bend noise, that cold air can carry a motorway hum further than it should. Completely reasonable. A visual alignment problem where the tower's shadow doesn't sit quite where it should on the railing, like the sun is a degree off. I blame the fact that I've never been good at judging angles without a tool, and I remind myself the tower sways. I make myself do a few push-ups against the rail because I read somewhere that tower operators do it to stay alert. My arms shake. The metal is cold through my palms. The tower creaks. I tell myself, the tower creaks. That's normal. The first time I hear the tapping, I think, branch, but there are no branches near the cabin. The tower rises above the canopy. That's the point. Up here, you're supposed to be beyond the reach of the bush. The tapping comes in sets of 3. Tap, tap, tap. Then nothing. Then after a delay that feels too long to be random. Tap, tap, tap. I cross to the window where I'm sure the sound came from. I lean out, careful of my balance. The wind presses against me like an impatient hand. There's nothing there, just space. And far below, the green blur of treetops. I shut the window. The tapping stops. I open it again. 3 taps. I shut the window again. It stops. It's as if whatever it is can only touch the tower when I am not looking at it. I don't write that sentence in the log. I write it like this. Log 107. Intermittent tapping on exterior wall. Possible loose fitting in wind. Window closed, reduced noise. No smoke. Nothing unusual. Then, because the wind has shifted, and the forest looks like the forest, and the birds behave like birds, I stop thinking about it. Tower unit. Confirm log frequency. My hand tightens on the pen. Logging every few minutes, I say, because that's what I've been doing. Correction. Control says, logging every 3 minutes. Deviation noted. Deviation? That word lands differently. Copy, I say, every 3 minutes. Proceed, Control says, and the radio clicks off like a guillotine. Log 110. Control correction. Log interval set to 3 minutes. No smoke. Nothing unusual. 3 minutes becomes an obsession. I start timing my life in it. I stop making tea because the kettle takes too long and I don't want to miss a log interval. I stop eating properly because chewing feels like wasted seconds. I pee with my eyes on the clock. Each time I write, it's not the writing that matters. It's the compliance. I don't realize how quickly I begin to treat the world as a background noise between log entries. How quickly I begin to wait for the book to tell me what is real. On the second day, there's a moment I can't explain even to myself. A car moves along a dirt track far below. Rare, but it happens. A flash of sunlight off a windscreen. Dust lifted like pale smoke. I lift the binoculars, find it, track it. It reaches a bend, goes behind trees. The dust should drift and dissipate. Instead, the dust stops, as if someone froze it mid-air. A suspended plume, held in place by an invisible hand. I blink, and it's gone. I lean closer to the glass, refocus, search. Nothing. My mouth is dry again. I pick up the pen. I hover over the page. If I write suspended dust, what happens? If I report it, Control will ask for certainty. Am I absolutely certain? No. I blinked. It could be a trick of light, a momentary alignment of sun and haze and my own eye muscles. I write what is safe. Log 442. Vehicle observed on lower access track. Dust plume normal. No smoke. I stare at the blank space where nothing unusual normally goes. The instruction says report it unless absolutely certain. I'm not. So I write, nothing unusual. The third day is when the logbook starts lying, or when I start lying and I can't remember doing it. I go to the drawer for the book at 5:59 because Control likes the hour and because the morning air is clear in a way that makes you feel like you could see the curve of the earth. The drawer sticks. I pull. It groans. It opens. The logbook is open already. I know I shut it the night before. I know I did, because I always shut it. I don't like leaving pages exposed to damp. It's open to a page I haven't seen. There's an entry written in my handwriting. Not similar. Mine. The way I make my capital R like a loop. The way I stab the pen at the end of a sentence if I'm annoyed. The timestamp reads 4:17. I stare at my watch. 5:59. I stare at the radio display. 5:59. The tower clock ticks. I read the entry. Log 4:17. Auditory delay exceeds expected range. Visual alignment drift increasing. Recommend classification. Unstable. Nothing unusual. I sit down so hard the chair squeals. My stomach turns, and for a moment, I think I might vomit onto the map. Unstable. Recommend classification. Who writes like that? I don't write like that. I wouldn't write like that. I wouldn't write nothing unusual under something like that. I flick back a page. There are more entries. Not many. 5, 7, a cluster. All in my handwriting. All between 4:17 and 4:35. All describing things I don't remember. Visual repeat patterns. Sound echoes with the wrong source. Shadow misplacement. The tapping. And under each one, the same phrase, written more and more neatly, like it was practiced. Nothing unusual. My throat tightens. I put my fingers on the page, feel the shallow ridges of ink pressed into paper. Then I do what I've been trained to do. I look for a rationalization. Sleepwalking. Microsleep. A nod off at the desk. People do it. You can come to and not remember the drift. Except the entries are too structured, and they are neat. And the timestamps. I flip to the previous day. The timestamps are normal. I flip to the day before. Normal. This cluster is a bruise. The radio clicks. I jolt like I've been caught stealing. Tower unit. Control says. Confirm day start condition. I swallow. I taste metal. Control, I say carefully. I have entries, logs, recorded under my name at 4:17. I don't recall. Do not discuss inconsistencies over open radio. Control cuts in, voice sharper now. Confirm day start condition. The laminated sheet flashes in my memory. Do not discuss inconsistencies over open radio. Day start condition, I repeat, dumbly. My eyes flick to the entry that says, recommend classification, unstable. If I say anything other than normal, I'm implying the logs aren't normal. If I say normal, I'm denying what's in front of me. My mouth opens. The word that comes out is not chosen. It's trained. Nothing unusual, I say. There's a pause. Then Control's voice softens by 1/2 degree. Confirmed, it says. Proceed. My skin prickles. That, right there, that was the test, wasn't it? Not the smoke, not the weather, not the forest. Me. Whether I would report the inconsistency, whether I would treat the logbook itself as abnormal, whether I would insist on my own memory over the written record. And I failed, or passed. I don't know which. I sit there with the pen in my hand, staring at the open book, and I realize something bleak. I don't know what the passing condition is. I only know the punishment condition, because the punishment condition is discomfort. It is correction. It is the tightening in Control's voice that makes you feel like a child who has done something shameful. So I write what will make the discomfort stop. Log 600. Day start condition, normal. No smoke. Nothing unusual. After that, the inconsistencies became consistent. That's the worst part. Not the fact they happen. The fact they begin to happen in a pattern I can anticipate. Like the tower is training me with repetition. At 9:12 every day, a bird calls from a direction that doesn't match the sound. Not in a big way, just wrong enough that you'd tilt your head if you were sitting under a tree, and then shrug. At 11:33, the sun flares off a rock face that doesn't exist on my map. At 2:18, the tapping comes, tap, tap, tap. Then silence. Then tap, tap, tap. At 5:45, my own footsteps on the cabin floor echo back to me 1/2 second late, like someone a few meters behind me is walking the same steps. I test it. I stop. The echo stops. I walk again. The echo follows. I speed up. It speeds up. I stamp once. Hard. A stamp answers from below. Delayed. I freeze. Heart hammering. Wind. Tower sway. Metal resonance. It could be the structure. It could be the ladder vibrating. It could be something loose. I don't want to open the trapdoor and look down. I log it as structural resonance. Nothing unusual. Because here's the trick. The job is not to detect weirdness. The job is to decide what counts as weird. And they made that decision before I arrived. I begin to notice the wording Control uses when it corrects me. It never says, "You're wrong." It says, "Correction. Confirmed normal." Like my perception is the error, not the world. And each time I accept that, I feel a tiny relief. Because the alternative is terrifying. The alternative is that the world has stopped obeying itself. The alternative is that I'm alone in a tower with a failing reality, and the only voice on the radio belongs to whatever is measuring how well I can pretend. Tower unit. Horizontal alignment check. I stare at the horizon. What do you mean? I ask, before I can stop myself. A pause, like Control is turning a page. Identify the western ridge. Confirm dead snag at reference point. My mouth goes dry. The snag. The one that slid in the binoculars on day 1. You've got that in your file? I whisper. Confirm alignment. Control repeats. I lift the binoculars. The ridge line is there. The dead snag is there. And it is not where it should be. It's not even subtle now. It's shifted so far along the ridge that it points at nothing. A cold sweat breaks along my hairline. I lower the binoculars, look with naked eyes. The snag is in the right spot. I lift the binoculars again. It slides, not smoothly, like it jumps, as if the world is trying on 2 versions of itself and can't decide which one fits. I swallow panic. Control, I say. Visual discrepancy noted. Binocular image. Wait 1 minute and confirm, Control says. And before I can answer, the instruction sheet again. If absolutely certain, wait 1 minute and confirm. My hands shake. I set the binoculars down, hard enough that the lenses clack against the desk. I stare at the second hand on the tower clock. It ticks. It ticks. It ticks. For a few seconds, it seems normal. Then it stops. Not like it breaks, like it holds its breath. My own breath catches with it. Then the second hand jumps forward. 5 seconds at once. Then ticks again. My stomach drops. I glance at my wristwatch. It's still moving normally. I glance at the radio display. It reads 11:59. It should be what? I don't know. I was counting seconds, not minutes. A wave of dizziness passes through me. I squeeze my eyes shut, open them again. The second hand is ticking. Normal. 1 minute. That's what they said. I check my watch. I time it. When the minute passes, I lift the binoculars again. The snag is in the right place. The wrong place. The right place. It flickers between the two like my eyes are blinking without permission. I lower the binoculars, press my fingers to my eyelids. When I look again with naked eyes, the snag is wrong. Not slightly. Wrong. The whole ridgeline has shifted. The skyline has a new notch in it. Something is missing. Something is added. A thin line that wasn't there before, like a second horizon layered behind the first. I feel the beginnings of hysterical laughter in my chest. I force my voice calm. Control, I say into the radio, confirming. Western ridge alignment has changed. Dead snag reference point inconsistent. I am absolutely certain this is different. There is silence. Then, correction. Confirmed normal. I stare at the radio, hatred and fear mixing in my gut. What? I whisper. Confirmed normal. Control repeats. And there's a tone under it now. A satisfaction. Log nothing unusual. My hand lifts the pen without my permission. On the page, I write log 1160. Western ridge alignment check completed. Reference point verified. Nothing unusual. I don't notice the timestamp until after. 1160. That's not a time. I stare at it, and something in my head tries to stand up and shout. That is impossible. But the shout is muffled by the relief of control, not sounding angry anymore. By the warmth of being told I did it right. By the tiny, shameful comfort of obedience. That night, I dream of riding, not of fire, not of the bush, not of falling, just writing. Lines and lines, my hand moving without thought, the page filling itself, and every sentence ending the same way. Nothing unusual. When I wake, the logbook is open again. There are fresh entries. My hand is cramped as if I'd been gripping the pen in my sleep. I don't remember doing it. The timestamps are wrong. Some are in the future. Some repeat. One is simply dash. Under that one, in my handwriting, there's a sentence that makes my stomach clench. If you stop noticing, you pass. I stare at it until my eyes blur. Then I do what I always do. I go to the laminated sheet for instruction. But the laminated sheet is different. The cable tie is intact. The sheet is in the same place. But the third line is not the same. It now reads, if absolutely certain, do not confirm. Report, nothing unusual. I run my thumb over the letters, like I can feel whether they were printed yesterday or months ago. My mind scrabbles for certainty. I could have misread it the whole time. I could have remembered it wrong. I could have hallucinated a third instruction because it fit a story I was telling myself. I look for the blank space where the fourth instruction should be. There is writing there now, faint, like it was printed in grey and only darkened with time. Stability is compliance. My mouth goes numb. The tower creaks. Somewhere below, tap, tap, tap. Tower unit, Control says, voice bright now, almost warm. Confirm stability. I don't answer straight away. I want to scream. I want to demand a human being, a supervisor, a face. I want to climb down and drive until the tower is behind me like a bad dream. But the access track is long and rough, and the sun is only just coming up, and the wind is already picking up. And I know, in my bones, that leaving would be an inconsistency, a deviation, and deviations get corrected. So I say softly, confirming, stable. Proceed. Control says, log. Log 592. Stability confirmed. Nothing unusual. The timestamp is wrong again. And this time, instead of panic, I feel resignation. A slow, sinking thought. It doesn't matter what time it is. Time is part of what they are testing. Time is part of the world I am being trained to accept. If the log says it's 592, then that's what it is in here. And if I can accept that without flinching, then I am stable. I write the next entry. I log the wind. I log the humidity. I log the birds. And then something happens that should have broken me. It is so simple and so wrong that I almost miss it. I look out the north window, the one that faces the slope down into deeper forest. There are trees, dense, dark. And between the trunks, far below, there is a second tower, not on the horizon, not in the distance, in the forest. A tower cabin, square, perched on metal legs that sink into the earth like insect limbs. It is close enough that I can see the railing, close enough that I can see a figure inside it. The figure is sitting at a desk. The figure is writing. My hand stops. My heart thuds once, hard, like it's trying to kick open a door in my chest. I lift the binoculars with shaking hands. The second tower fills the lenses. The figure inside is me. Not in a metaphorical way, in a literal way. Same shirt, same posture, same pen hand movement, same slight tilt of head when I'm thinking. I drop the binoculars. The second tower is still there. I lift them again. The figure looks up and smiles. I jerk back so hard the chair scrapes. My breath comes in sharp, shallow pulls. My mouth opens to scream into the radio, to shout, "Control, what the hell is that?" But the radio clicks first. "Tower unit," Control says, gently, like speaking to a frightened animal. "Do you observe anything unusual?" My entire body is shaking. A second version of me is sitting in a second tower that should not exist, inside a forest that cannot hold it, and the system asks me, politely, whether I observe anything unusual. If I say yes, what happens? If I say no, what happens? My eyes flick to the laminated sheet. Stability is compliance. I understand suddenly, with a clarity that hurts. They are not punishing me for being wrong. They are rewarding me for yielding. They are shaping the boundary between normal and abnormal until their version of normal replaces mine. The second tower is still there. The me inside it is still smiling. He lifts his pen, taps it 3 times against the desk. Tap, tap, tap. The sound reaches me, faint but distinct, as if there's no wind and no distance at all. My stomach flips. I stare at the logbook, at the pre-printed columns, at the neat lines of numbers and words, at the entries I don't remember writing, at the timestamps that do what they want. And I realize the paper is more trusted than my marrow. My hand moves. I don't decide. I don't weigh. I don't fight. I write slowly, carefully, the way you write when you want your handwriting to match the authority of the page. Log 912. North sector scan completed. Secondary structure observed. Operator present. No smoke. Nothing unusual. My chest loosens by half a breath, like a band has been slightly relaxed. The radio is silent. Then Control speaks, almost tender. "Confirmed stable," it says, and in that moment, I feel a sick pride, like I've done well, like I've learned the rule. Days blur, or maybe they repeat. It becomes hard to tell. Sometimes I read entries that describe storms I don't remember. Sometimes my food supplies are lower than they should be. Sometimes there are 2 mugs on the desk, and I don't know why. The second tower appears more often. Sometimes there are 3. Once, I look down and see a whole small city of towers in the forest, all at different angles, like someone scattered them across the ground. In each one, a figure sits and writes. Sometimes I swear they are all me. Sometimes they are not. Sometimes the figures look up and wave, like we are colleagues on shift. I stop reacting, because reaction is a form of judgment, and judgment is what they are sanding down. I still feel fear, sometimes, but it comes late, like delayed audio, arriving after the moment it should have protected me, and then it fades, because nothing reinforces it, because every time I try to name the wrongness, Control corrects me. Confirmed normal. Log nothing unusual. Proceed. The last thing I remember clearly, if this is clearly, is the day the sun sets in the east. It isn't dramatic. No thunder, no tearing sky. Just, I watch the light shift, and it moves the wrong way. The shadows climb the railing from the east. The forest goes gold from the wrong side. Birds settle, confused, and then continue as if they've always done it this way. My mouth opens. A part of me tries to stand up again. The one that wants to survive by refusing to accept nonsense. But Control calls. Tower unit. Confirm sunset. I look at the logbook. There's already an entry. In my handwriting. Log 603. Sunset east. Confirmed normal. Nothing unusual. I stare at it. Then I write. Nothing unusual. Because the relief is immediate. Because the relief is addictive. Because the tower is quieter when I comply. Because the wind feels less hostile when I stop naming it. Because my own mind stops clawing at itself when I let the record decide what is real. And because deep down, the darkest part of me has started to want the label. Stable. Stable means you get to stay. Stable means you don't get corrected as harshly. Stable means you don't have to fight. Tonight, something impossible happens, and I don't react. I am standing at the window when the forest lifts. That's the closest word. The treetops rise, as if the whole landscape is being tilted upright, like a painting. The horizon slides down until it's level with my eyes. The sky becomes a wall. Stars appear too low, too bright, pinned like nails in blue velvet. The air feels thick, like water. Below, the towers in the forest tilt with it, staying perfectly vertical relative to their own ground, as if each one carries its own gravity. In the closest tower, a figure, me, puts down his pen. He looks up. He meets my gaze through impossible distance. He raises his hand, and for a moment, in the silence between gusts of wind, I hear a sound that isn't the radio and isn't the tower. A soft click, like a microphone turning on in a room you forgot had one. Control speaks. Its voice is not in the speaker. Its voice is in the air. Tower unit, it says, and it sounds so close it could be behind my ear. Do you observe anything unusual? I pick up my pen. My hand is steady. The logbook is open to a fresh page. The timestamp field is blank, waiting for whatever time decides to be. Outside, the world is vertical. The sky is a wall. The forest is trying to climb into it. A second moon rises from the wrong corner and hangs there like an eyeball. And I feel calm. Because calm is the reward. Because calm is the absence of correction. Because calm is what they've been teaching me to crave. I put the pen to paper. Log 10 Environmental conditions stable. Alignment within tolerance. Auditory delays normal. No smoke. Nothing unusual. As I finish the last word, the radio clicks once. Not a call, not a transmission. A confirmation tone, like a system acknowledging data received. And then, quietly, gently, the way a trainer praises a dog that has finally stopped barking. Confirmed stable, Control says. I close the logbook. I don't remember deciding to. I set the pen down. I look out at the sky wall and the impossible moons and the towers full of copies and the forest that has become a tilted diagram. And my brain offers me the phrase that fits over everything like a blanket. Nothing unusual. If you're hearing this, if the timing feels wrong, if you noticed the echo arrive too late, if you felt, even once, that something in your room shifted by a fraction when you weren't looking, Wait 1 minute and confirm. And unless you are absolutely certain, report nothing unusual.